To say that Oshi no Ko blew up on arrival is a bit of an understatement. We're talking tens of thousands of tweets, the most successful premiere ever for High Dive, the most underrated anime streaming platform ever, one of the highest scoring debuts in my anime listery history, and a #1 single on the Billboard charts. That's right, not Oricon, Billboard. Well, also Oricon. Kinda goes without saying it'd be #1 in Japan, but for a minute, Idol by YOASOBI was the biggest song in the entire world, excluding America. The first anime theme or Japanese song period to ever claim that title. So, given the huge impact this anime has had both on the community and me personally, I wanted to take a look back at the whole first season, now that it's over, to see if it held up and figure out why. What about this concept and the way it's executed has made it resonate so widely and so deeply? Is this anime really that good? Spoiler alert, yes. And if it is, what makes it so damn good? Which also happens to be a convenient excuse to wax philosophical once more on the fantastic writing of Aka Akasaka, creator of Kaguya-sama Love is War, an anime I love thinking about so much I wrote an actual movie about it. But I promise, both you guys and my editors, I won't let this video get quite that out of hand. You can check the timestamp if you don't believe me. I mean, I did kind of accidentally make a whole bonus analysis video of the opening credits over on my second channel, Basement Life. That's separate content. It's healthy. I'm just looking for a more manageable way to bring back what's in an OP, that's all. I'm not obsessed. You're obsessed. Look, I'll prove it by doing a criticism. If I have one complaint about Oshi no Ko, it's that High Dive neglected to subtitle P-Aeon's workout song in episode 5, which isn't exactly the end of the world, it's nothing plot vital, but there is some humor and character building in there that I think most fans would prefer not to have missed. Thankfully, today's video partner has a simple solution to that problem. All you gotta do is learn Japanese. Okay, obviously that's a little easier said than done, but maybe not as much as you'd expect with the power of Rosetta Stone on your side. Rosetta Stone is a pioneering language learning app trusted the world over by governments and enterprise alike for its intuitive and immersive method. Instead of drilling you on vocabulary in your native tongue, Rosetta Stone will have you speaking exclusively in Japanese from day one, teaching you to associate the new sounds you're making directly with the images and concepts they represent, as well as the characters that represent those sounds, the same way we both learned the words I'm saying now. Rosetta Stone focuses on teaching you practical conversational language, and their voice recognition feature helps you practice your pronunciation so any potential conversation partners will understand you as you gush about your favorite anime and idols, the same way you'll now understand those things' dialogue and lyrics. And with the app on mobile and lessons as short as 10 minutes, you can learn all that whenever and wherever you have time. And I do mean whenever, as in throughout your whole life, because right now, exclusively for you basement dwellers, Rosetta Stone is offering lifetime subscriptions for a whopping 50% off at partners.rosettastone.com/mothersbasement/MB1. And that $150 doesn't just get you Japanese, it opens up all 25 Rosetta Stone languages, so you can keep using this incredible tool to expand your mind and your world no matter where life takes you in the future. All you gotta do is click the link below to start that journey today. Alright, I guess that was more a criticism of the localization than the anime itself. Also, it was a very mild criticism. Also, it was more of a segue into an ad spot than an actual criticism. But I think I proved my point. Now let's start figuring out why so many people love this anime so much. The first secret to Oshi no Ko's success is no secret at all, really. Given the attention it grabbed and buzz it generated, you can make a very strong, non-hyperbolic argument that this anime has the best, or at least most effective, first episode of all time. Well, first movie might be more accurate. Not only is it feature length, but the premiere even enjoyed a theatrical run in Japan 2 weeks ahead of the show's debut, something the special recap episode calls unprecedented in anime history, even though Jimmy Neutron did it first. Still, Oshi no Ko almost certainly did it best, with a film that serves not just as a strong, self-contained introduction to the world and characters, but essential setup for its central mystery and drama, allowing it to fill the same hype-generating role in anime form that the first volume of the manga did by killing off its apparent protagonist 3 months into the series' run in Weekly Young Jump. But I think it simply wouldn't have worked in the anime for 2 key reasons. First, spoilers would already have been out there for any viewers curious enough to look in the weeks it would have taken the anime to get there, removing the shock factor completely. And secondly, those first 3 to 4 episodes wouldn't have much of a hook beyond this idol story is unusually honest about the dark side of the industry, which has been done in anime before. Package all that up in a real good feel-bad movie, though, and suddenly, instead of a month-long commitment to a show you're not sure about that fans could have fallen off of, you've got this singular viewing event that influencer types like myself could freak out and shout, "Yo, go see this thing," without looking up anything about, and then you'd go do that, and because you know the runtime, instead of getting bored waiting for the plot to happen, you actually let yourself get sucked into the exploration of Hoshino Ai's character and her tragic inability to see the truth in her own feelings, which proves to be her greatest strength as an idol, which in turn ensures that ending will hit you like a knife to the gut. And then, when Aqua vows to find her true killer in the end, not only do you get to enjoy the distinctly anime hype of, wow, look at this handsome young man about to go do terrible things to terrible people, but also, emotionally speaking, you understand where he's coming from and completely want to root for him in his quest for vengeance, because you also really care about Ai, even if you've been around the storytelling block enough times to know he ought to be digging 2 graves before he sets out. It's such a strong setup that it ironically set the show up for a degree of failure, too. There was simply no way the episode-to-episode viewing experience could really match the concentrated intensity of that first roller coaster ride, especially not when the mystery it hooks you on proves to be something of a slow burner. So some disappointment for at least some viewers was inevitable, and it was equally inevitable that some of that disappointment would mix with the inevitable backlash against any anime that gets such insanely high initial ratings into a very potent blend of haterade. Oh hey look! The guy who mocked a YouTuber for his brother's death wrote a novel feigning outrage about the show's portrayal of online harassment. And it's the second most liked Oshi no Ko review on MAL. Of course, that is in the greater context of what's still the 15th highest rated anime on the whole site and the 5th highest non-sequel, so clearly the haters are a minority there, but they're a vocal one whose complaints are probably worth acknowledging, if only to immediately dismiss most of them. Like, yeah, if you come off that last 5 minutes of movie expecting the next Death Note, the rest of the show won't leave you very satisfied, but there's way more movie there than those last 5 minutes, and the complete package promises quite a bit more, all of which the show makes good on, such as the character-driven comedy that Aka Akasaka is already very well known for, plus the potent escapist fantasy of watching nobodies become superstars, seen both in how the twins are reincarnated with the looks, skills, and connections to break into showbiz, and in Ai's story of going from the orphanage to the Budokan. And then, of course, there's the drama that's born from that fantasy crashing up against the unfair reality of the Japanese entertainment industry. A world of creative compromise built on convenient lies and ulterior motives, where politics and the almighty yen trump all else, and artists have to fight tooth and nail to make their voices heard. All for an audience that demands they bury their humanity in those lies, while paradoxically expecting to find something authentic to connect with in their work. Oshi no Ko is about the contradiction and interplay between the glitz and glamour of the spotlight and the darkness that lurks behind the scenes. The latter aspect coming through in Aqua's story of schmoozing his way from set to set, tracking down clues in the mystery of the twins' father, while the former is embodied in Ruby and her unshaken aspiration to become an idol in the spitting image of their late mother, who herself was the very embodiment embodiment of that contradiction. An idol yearning to find her truth in the lies her job demanded of her, who finally found the secret to connecting with her fans in a secret she could never, ever tell them. I understand wanting to chase the high of those last 5 minutes, wishing the show could ditch the comedy and idol fantasies to go all in those all according to Keikaku vibes that it does very well, but I think that would seriously diminish what makes Oshi no Ko great, and not just because I'm personally a big fan of how Akasaka writes comedy. I do think that both Kaguya-sama and this show prove he has the chops to write something that's pure Machiavellian mind games, and I'd love to see him do something like that one day, but in this series specifically, it's the contrast between the light and the darkness that highlights and enhances both aspects of the story. Well, that's what makes the series' drama work, at least. And I think that dramatic balance by itself would be enough to make this a very satisfying anime. But what takes it to the next level, and kept me coming back week to week, is the well-researched insight this anime offers into the inner workings of Japan's entertainment world. Fascinating facts gleaned from interviews with actors, idols, producers, YouTubers, streamers, and so on that Akasaka and co-author Mengo Yokoyari know, as well as their personal experiences navigating the manga business and seeing their work adapted to film and TV. That's one of the most interesting parts of the movie, too, from the maybe not so surprising fact that most idols don't get paid very well and have terrible job security, to more interesting nuances of the business, like how a good performance from an appealing actress can get cut from a show because the agents of the co-star she upstaged have more pull on the production committee. And after the time skip, as Ruby and especially Aqua get into the entertainment business, the insider info only becomes more detailed and intriguing. I've spent more than my fair share of time bemoaning J-drama adaptations of my favorite manga and anime, so the way the Sweet Today arc dug into the behind-the-scenes politics and conflicting producer priorities that can make an adaptation of a beloved work turn out that terribly felt like a legitimate revelation. And as someone who has to, exist on the internet for a living, I found the way the show explores the dehumanizing brutality of anonymous online backlash to be very cathartic, though obviously I've never been through anything half as bad or even a quarter as big as what happened to Akane. Of course, that plot point did hit a little too close to home for the family of wrestler Hana Kimura, who went through something similar after a controversy on Terrace House and sadly didn't survive it. And to be clear, her family's discomfort with that episode is very valid, and the Oshi no Ko fans who've taken to the web to tell them otherwise are absolute scum who could not have missed the point harder if they tried. But at the same time, what happened to Kimura wasn't exactly an isolated incident. Akasaka most likely drew on many different news events and private interviews with people he knows to put that story together. I mean, kinda says as much in the arc when she intimates that, if there's 50 people who've actually done it, there's probably 10 times as many who've come right up to the edge and never come out about it. And personally, I think it's really good that the anime tries to get that point across. One of Akasaka's stated goals with Oshi no Ko was to bring to light the pain that so many young performers quietly carry with them, inflicted by the audience, exploitative management, and the brutal nature of the business itself, while putting on a brave face for the sake of their works and their fans. But with that said, I don't want any of you to misread that I'm saying that this anime is good because it's aiming to perform a social good. That's secondary to its quality as a story. The depth of Akasaka's research makes this a much more dramatic drama for fundamentally the same reason that his research into ramen connoisseur subculture, analog game design, psychology, and what it's like to run a YouTube channel make Kaguya-sama a funnier comedy. Funny enough, that last point's also very relevant in Oshi no Ko. Akasaka doesn't just include all these interesting facts he knows about esoteric topics and different jobs for the sake of trivia. He uses the lived experiences of the people he interviews and reads about as a baseline for building his characters and the stories that happen to them. And because he's basing so much of his fiction in fact, the emotional beats of his stories consistently ring true. Kana Arima is an immensely appealing and likable character in a generally archetypal waifu sense, sure, but her whole personality is also very specifically informed by her experiences as a child actress, which were in turn informed by the experiences of famous real-world actress Anna Karina. The high of the initial fame and the arrogance that naturally came with it in someone so young, the drop when work started drying up and her parents, not seeing what she was going through, left her on her own to go to the countryside, the overcorrection in putting everyone else on set ahead of herself to be easy to work with, all of that created the sweet, charming girl who's full of sass yet fundamentally incapable of actually speaking her mind that we know and love. And while the series does wring some easily relatable Kaguya-esque doki dokis out of her obvious crush on Aqua, the first big moment where her character really resonates is also rooted in film industry facts. The anime goes to lengths to establish all the obstacles on Sweet Today's set, standing between the talented actress and the genuinely good show that she knows she can make, as well as how little respect her talent and the sacrifices she's made so far have really earned her, setting up a dramatic problem and helping us understand her stake in it as a character. So, in the climax, when Aqua skillfully weaves his way around those obstacles, forcibly pulls a good performance out of the arrogant pretty boy, and lays the stage for her to deliver just one genuinely great scene, we fully feel what that means to her. And not just for her. Seeing the manga's creator react to that one good scene a little later hits home maybe even harder, or at least it did for me. Now, the only context that we're given for what this manga and that scene mean to its in-universe fans are the few tweets we read from them, unless we've seen Kaguya-sama, of course. But that's probably enough by itself. As fans, it's only natural that we'll relate to the in-universe fan perspective on the events of the plot, even as our insider info lets us see how wrong the fans are about most stuff most of the time. And because of that, the show's able to use fan input sparingly as a plot device. Gossip about reality TV drama heard in passing on the street can reflect our heroes' worries back at them and twist the knife on their personal concerns. A few tweets here and there can give us a barometer for how the current project of the current arc is doing and establish stakes for the performer's work outside of, Aqua trying to solve the mystery. Crank the number of comments up, though, and suddenly the tsunami of hate and hot takes can feel like a straight-up natural disaster. And all that's very effective for helping to humanize the celebrity characters, but it also means that in the rare cases where we do get to see the personal perspective of an individual fan, it tends to have a really strong impact on the story. Like when that one old dude at Idolfest who was there for I way back when the babies danced gets carried away watching Ruby perform. A big moment for him and for her, as it confirms that her dream of being her mom's successor wasn't just an idle fantasy. Though, of course, he's not the only old-school Hoshino Ai otaku in the crowd that day, and Ruby's not the only idol up on that stage. Even as her natural star is beginning to shine and Memcho's YouTube fans cheer her on, Kana's there too, wallowing in her past failures and lamenting everything the other two have that she feels she lacks, which only gets worse when Ruby tries to cheer her up with that inherited brilliance. But then she catches a flash of white in the sea of yellow and red. Old man Aqua doing the same dance from when he was a baby to the same song. And while, of course, he's also carrying torches, the pen lights for his sister and work buddy, he holds Kana's color up first and highest and lets it stand alone in his left hand. But in Kana's eyes, even that's not good enough. While Ruby may have inherited Ai's natural aura, only the love-starved child actress can truly match the orphan idol's insatiable greed. And that pushes her to vie not just for Aqua's heart, but the whole damn audience, matching the energy of Ai's original performance of the song literally beat for beat, which takes Aqua's breath away, impresses the old otaku and his employee just as much as Ruby, and even catches the eye of whatever it was up in the heavens that smiled down on Ai and the twins all those years ago. Which might just be some kind of visual metaphor, but given the supernatural elements of this story, we can never be too sure. Speaking of, we should probably get to discussing Aqua and Ruby directly at some point in this review, considering they're the anime's heroes, and, as a pair of reborn otaku, our relatable windows into that entertainment world. At first, they suffer under many of the same illusions about the business as most fans do, and ask the same questions most fans would, conveniently prompting expositional explanations of how wrong those assumptions are. They're also living a fantasy that many real Japanese idol otaku apparently joke about all the time, being reincarnated as the child of their fave, which clearly proved appealing enough to grab even the imaginations of foreigners who've never heard that joke. While the death of Ai is undoubtedly the single most defining moment in both Ruby and Aqua's lives, the nature of their past lives and past deaths does just as much to inform who they are and what they're capable of. Aqua was a doctor in his past life, so naturally he's book smarter than your average teenager, and he's got a lot of experience dealing with people, particularly in trying times. But at the same time, he's not a genius, at least not in the same sense as Shirogane or Kaguya, or even that dumbass Light Yagami. He can certainly play the part by employing knowledge and experience beyond his years and his peers, but by 15, that gap has already closed quite a bit from back when he was, holy crap, a talking baby! And his 30-something world weariness can even put him at a disadvantage to his fellow teens in certain ways, like how he decided to give up on acting before he even got to high school. Also, he had to go through puberty twice. That sucks. Meanwhile, his twin died as a teenager, so after the time skip, her body has already effectively caught up with her mind. Hell, given how sheltered her life was as a cancer patient with stars on the brain, like literally, that's what anaplastic astrocytoma is. Look it up. She's probably lived more life as Ruby than she ever did as Sarina, and that one fact defines everything about her. Unlike Aqua, who was tired enough of the old life he felt he failed his way through that he was willing to thank the stalker who pushed him off that cliff for the new one he was living, she never even got the chance to try, let alone fail. So she fears not trying far more than failure, and that kind of makes her invincible. I was the brightest light in both of their lives, but in Dr. Goto's case, that was because he'd kinda checked out, especially after he failed to save Sarina. But for her, I represented something aspirational, someone who could vicariously touch the stars beyond her hospital window for her. Reincarnation is a second chance for the both of them, but only Ruby, whose life was essentially over before it began, is really ready to take it on. For Aqua, who got so used to going through the motions like he was already dead that he panicked about getting back to work when he was dying, all that matters is being with the only person who gave that old life meaning, Ai. So when Ai dies, he's back to feeling like he may as well too. And it's only the thought of taking vengeance on the man who took her from him that keeps him going. Not even finding out why he did it. What we already know about the twisted world of entertainment kind of makes that much obvious. Whoever their celebrity dad is, he valued his own reputation over their mother's life. And as someone who figured he'd be headed for hell anyway when he died, Aqua's all too happy to drag that bastard down with him for his sin. But of course, he's not in hell, and as Gotanda and plenty of other people keep trying to tell him, his life's just getting started. Aqua's surrounded by plenty of wonderful people, and in fact, he keeps meeting new ones through the jobs he takes on to get closer to the killer. What's more, he's able to keep getting those jobs because despite what he thinks of himself, he's got a natural knack for the most important part of acting, intuiting and responding to unspoken cues. A skill that's only been enhanced by all the time he's spent working behind the scenes trying to convince himself that he didn't have a future in acting. And that's not even getting into his skill for impressions, which we repeatedly see is so good it can fool both his own twin sister and the girl who has a crush on him. Compare that to Ruby, who's got natural charisma for days and has become an incredible dancer driven purely by the joy of finally having a body that can move like she wants it to, but who also still can't sing for crap after a lot of practice and has to give up being the center just to give her idol unit a shot at success. With his skills, if Aqua just had Ruby's positive attitude, he could seize a life for himself that most people only dream of. But of course, it's the fact that he can't see that he's so pessimistic, willing to throw everything away and even exploit those wonderful people like Akane in pursuit of his vengeance, that makes him so compelling as a tragic hero. And the contrast only makes Ruby shine brighter. Well, maybe it's not quite right to say he'd throw everything away. Aqua's love for his sister and for Kana, which seems to be somewhat tied up in his lingering escapist passions as an idol otaku, do give him something to care about beyond revenge. He even takes time away from his quest to help their careers along, and even when he's on set working toward his goals, he can't help, well, being helpful to those he sees struggling, like Kana on the set of Sweet Today and Akane on Love Now. He may not be a doctor anymore, but he hasn't forgotten his oaths, no matter how much he lies to himself and others. And that might just be what saves him from the whole two graves fate we were talking about earlier. Or it might make it that much harder to take when he does finally leave Ruby and Kana behind at the point of no return. But no matter how his journey ends, I am more than hooked enough at this point to want to see it all the way through. And we do already have some hints as to where it's heading next. While it certainly ties everything together on a very satisfying note with B. Komachi's first performance, the finale also lays the stage for the events of Season 2, which will be centered on a 2.5D stage play based on the much-hyped yaoi baitin' battle manga Tokyo Blade, and performed by La La Lai, the theater company where I almost certainly met the twins' father. So that's obviously going to do quite a bit to move the central mystery forward, and it will no doubt be very educational as to how that distinct brand of anime-inspired theater works, especially for people who can't actually go see 2.5D stage plays because we don't live in Japan. Plus, it looks like it's going to bring back some characters from previous arcs, like that hack pretty boy from Sweet Today, who seems to be putting some serious effort into polishing his acting skills now. Maybe Aqua and Kana rubbed off on him. But, of course, speaking of Kana, the main event of that arc is going to be a clash of egos between her and Akane, who seem to have some serious past beef as child actors that goes well beyond their love triangle with Aqua. And I must have caught the director's pro-Kana bias, because I wrote a whole extra page of this script just analyzing the implications of their 2-minute exchange in the finale, but All of Akasaka's characters are ultimately layered and nuanced like that. It's the biggest part of why his stories are so fun to experience and re-experience. Nobody with a speaking role, here or in Kaguya, feels like a background extra. They all contribute something meaningful, and digging into their characters always unveils new layers about the events that have come before and tells you things about what might be coming later. And if I let myself get carried away, I could definitely turn this video into another movie just trying to pick apart all those little things that make Gotanda, Miyako, Kana, and so many others great, but I have already indulged myself with that bonus What's in an OP, which you should go check out now this video's done, so I think I'll let you and my editors off the hook. For now. I'm Geoff Thew, professional Akasaka simp, and fuck it, I'm gonna go binge that manga now. But seriously, please go check out the What's in an OP over there. It's very good.